Good morning. Welcome to the Future of Appalachia. That's the name of our show, and this is the place where we make the case and we share the partners who believe there is a future in Appalachia, and we want to tell the story, share the examples, and build the momentum and build a partnership around people who agree that there is a future in Appalachia. We got several things I'm going to talk about today. We'd really love for anybody to jump in and join, share with your friends, join in the conversation. I'm going to talk for a bit here at the beginning just about some recent announcements or projects, give some quick updates on things upcoming, and then I want to talk about it's National Entrepreneurship Week, and so that's kind of right up my alley. So I want to talk about that just for a few minutes. If you're thinking about starting a business, or you know somebody thinking about starting a business, we'll talk about some of that information. And if you've got questions about how to start a business, or if you're running a business and you're trying to figure out what you need to do or how you could do better, if you've got ideas, share those with us. We would love to talk about it. Real quick before we get started, I want to recognize we've had several new partners over the last few weeks. If you don't know, SOAR we're a nonprofit, we're a 501c3, and we exist to serve our partners, and we want to build a network of partners in Eastern Kentucky doing great work. We got a plan. That's our blueprint for a 21st century Appalachia. You say, well, what's the plan if there's a future? Well, we've got one that was developed with input from over 3,000 people in the region. You can find that on our website. And now we're asking partners and individuals and organizations to step up and commit to do some part of it. We think every step, every goal has to be worked toward, and there's no one key, no one solution to Appalachia. We think it takes a broad approach. So I want to recognize some of the partners, especially some small businesses that have signed on, and we appreciate their partnership and what they're doing. We got several that we've highlighted in the last little bit: Maritzo Ministries, and the Chocolate Inn and Cafe, Thatcher's Downtown, BitSource, which is the local company here in Pikeville. Thatcher's, Josh, where's Thatcher's located? Is that
Jackson?
Jackson. They're in Jackson. The Chocolate Inn and Cafe's in Beattyville, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we got partners all across the region. We also had Mount Folly Farm recently sign up to be a partner. So we appreciate our partnerships. That's not as much about the resources they give to SOAR, the organization, but it's about the commitment they make to their community and the region to do their part to make a difference. So let us know some of your favorite small businesses or entrepreneurs that would be great to highlight, and we would love to bring them on or share their stories. That's what this is all about. So the history of National Entrepreneurship Week. Let's talk about that in just a minute. First, let's talk about some things that happened this past week. You may have seen that the governor was in Paintsville. Governor Bevin was in Paintsville for the kickoff and the opening of. Hold on, I'm checking. I may be getting a. Give me 1 second. He was there for the opening of the Haas East Kentucky Advanced Manufacturing Institute down in Paintsville, eKAMI. It's a great project led by Kathy Walker there in Paintsville. This lines up perfectly with our vision for the future of Appalachia when we talk about 21st century workforce, relevant skills in today's economy. And so they are, it's a 40,000 square foot facility, and it was an idea of a local person. And Kathy Walker there in Paintsville had the vision and worked together with many partners to make it a reality. One of those partners was AML Funds, and a partnership between Congressman Rogers and Governor Bevin that made that vision a possibility. They've got a first class of 13 students. Began training in November. They're going to graduate soon. It's a 16-week course, and they're doing CNC training. So it's advanced manufacturing. They've got a partnership with Moorhead, so this is going hand in hand with some of the other work that's going on in the region as it comes to groups like One East Kentucky that are working to recruit employers and industrial employers to the region. This becomes a training vehicle for those. You know, we get a question a lot: do you train the workforce before you get the employers? Well, we think we just got to be doing all of it at the same time. There's enough organizations, there are enough people that specialize in different things that we can all be working all ends of this at the same time. So that's an exciting facility, exciting opportunity. Find more information about that on our website. And if you just Google eKAMI, E-K-A-M-I, you can find out more information about that. Also this week on Tuesday, WellCare donated $25,000 to Addiction Recovery Care to support their work in addiction recovery and workforce training for people coming out of recovery. So that's exciting. That entire partnership came about through an event we hosted last fall called Provider Education, where we brought a lot of the experts really in the state and also nationally to talk about prevention and treatment of addiction, substance use disorder. So out of that, this partnership formed. WellCare went and visited some of addiction recovery care centers, loved what they were doing, and made a donation to continue and support that work. Also out of that came new partnerships in the Letcher County area in Whitesburg, and now it's turned into the Kentucky River Substance Abuse Consortium, and they are working on a lot of different projects there in Whitesburg. As we are looking, I'll be there Monday afternoon for the consortium. I believe it starts at 4 p.m. They're hosting at the health department this Monday in Whitesburg. So if you have an interest in that, come by and see us. So that's one thing that's coming up. Got several other things on deadline. Our team's going to be kind of all over the map in the next week. I'm headed to Boston this weekend to speak at a conference at Harvard, which is something I never thought I would be doing. But looking forward to getting to share the message of Appalachia in a positive light, and that there is a future in Appalachia with people all across the country. It's part of the great opportunity I have in this work. We got the consortium I mentioned in Whitesburg on Friday. We also have one deadline I want to mention. I don't know, you may have seen this, but this came out from the state. It's an Opportunity Zone, RFI. This was something that came out federally in the tax reform bill that it's kind of confusing. I'm not going to jump into details. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to our office. Kevin Laux would be the person you should ask for. And we got cell phones ringing. Got service here in Appalachia. So opportunity zones. This is an opportunity to select. The governor of each state gets to select so many census tracts in impoverished areas, or that a census tract that is congruent to an impoverished census tract. And these become opportunity zones, which create special tax incentives for companies that make investments in these zones. I think the number is 143, if we did our math right, that the governor gets to select statewide. So the governor's office has gone through a process through the Cabinet for Economic Development, where they've requested local governments to submit a request and say include this census tract. That application, you can find this RFI. We sent it out in an email. If you're on our email list, you should have gotten it. If not, you can find it on thinkkentucky.com under the news releases. And there's a list of 9 things you have to put together. It's a tight deadline. If you've not started working on it, it may be difficult. This is due to the cabinet Monday. So it would reach out to your local officials and see if they're working on it. If you are a local official, reach out to us, ask us, and we can help you with it and talk about it. So just to recap real quick, we've talked about the Haas announcement in Paintsville, eKAMI, East Kentucky Advanced Manufacturing Institute. The grand opening was on Tuesday. WellCare that same day made a donation to Addiction Recovery Care, working to continue the effort. As our blueprint goal number 4 is around healthy communities, and we're connecting that work with addiction treatment and workforce development, economic development. That's the beauty of SOAR, is we have so many different partners sitting at the same table. And then we talked about the opportunity zones. So we in our office have gone through and identified the census tracts that have industrial parks or downtowns in them, or are potential sites for pretty large tourism development. Things like the Appalachian Wildlife Center down in Bell County, the Red River Gorge area, all of the multi-county industrial parks, downtowns, and most of the county seats, and the Breaks Interstate Park in the Elkhorn City area, to make sure that the local officials in those communities are working to put together applications. So we've done a lot of that, and we're going to write a letter supporting the priority census tracts we think have the most opportunity. We don't think the best solution is to just submit every census tract in eastern Kentucky, because there are limited amount the governor's going to get to pick for the entire state. So we want the most priority ones and have the best opportunity to be a part and get some opportunity zones in Appalachia, Kentucky. All right. So let's talk a little bit, see if we have any questions on here. I've seen several of our blueprint partners have joined. I think I just saw Sean Thatcher may have jumped on for a minute, and glad to see him on. I've not got to meet him yet. Josh in our office has been working with him. His story that Josh wrote, covering his journey to becoming an entrepreneur, I think it had about 900 shares last time we checked on the Kentucky Today's website. I think WYMT did a story on them last night. Hey Sean, great to have you. It's appropriate that you're on today. We're talking about National Entrepreneurship Week, and I'm going to talk a little bit about starting small businesses in eastern Kentucky, starting small businesses in general, and would be happy to answer any questions about people who have started a business or thinking about it. Or Sean, if you could share, if you want to post on there some of the challenges you had or things you learned, that'd be great, and we'll kind of discuss that. But I'm going to start with what I consider my definition of being an entrepreneur, and we've talked about. I've shared this story several times, but several years ago I got to sit in be one of 5 judges in a business planning competition at Alltech. They do an Alltech Innovation Contest each year. And I got to be one of the judges, and I was in Lexington at Alltech's headquarters judging these business plans that college students had put together. They were making the pitches. It was kind of like a Shark Tank type experience. And Pierce Lyons shared his story of when he started Alltech. And Alltech at that time was approaching being $1 billion company. I mean, it's just I can't remember how many countries they have offices in. It's just incredible what he's been able to do. And he shared the story of when he was starting his business. And he told the story of how many lenders, he needed $10,000 to start his business. And he went to different banks, and people just kept telling him no. And it occurred to me that we oftentimes, when you're thinking about starting a business or you're thinking about doing something, it involves risk, especially if you're if you've never been a business owner and you're trying to get out of a traditional type work environment. I mean, you're risking maybe all of your savings. You're going to putting your family at risk and the time that you're able to spend with them, and the security of having a job. But I thought about those banks that said no to peers. And they were looking at this as, maybe a risky investment. But entrepreneurs, they look and assess the risk of doing nothing. And they will not accept the risk of doing nothing. And so many times when we're thinking about making a decision and what we're going to do in life or in our career or starting a business, entrepreneurs can't accept the risk of doing nothing. They see an opportunity, and the thought of trying that opportunity and making a go of it and being successful or failing, we would much rather accept that than wondering the rest of our lives what would have happened if we would have tried. What would have happened if we would have given it a shot? And so I thought about those banks that said no, and they were just looking at the risk. Wow, if we give $10,000, we might lose $10,000. What they didn't think about is if we don't do this $10,000, we could potentially lose a lifetime customer that will eventually have $1 billion company. So assess the risk of doing nothing, and we do that in a and we've said that about SOAR and our partners, as we are partners who look at the future of Appalachia, and we may make mistakes. We may not do everything. Not everything we try to do may be a success, but I can guarantee you we won't accept the risk of doing nothing. We're not going to sit back and wait and see what the future is. We're building partners of people who believe in the future and are going to do something to impact it. So that's my definition of an entrepreneur. They refuse to accept the risk of doing nothing. They take risks. They step out on faith many times, believing in the idea they have, believing in a product, believing in a service, and they step out and they take a risk. And we owe we have a lot of gratitude for the people who are willing to do it. So we believe in doing something, and we believe in being smart about what we're doing and thinking about it. But at the end of the day, we got to make a move. We've got to keep doing something, and we need everybody stepping up and playing a part and being a part of what's going on in Appalachia. Whether that is simply this is, you may say, well, I'm never going to start a business, or I don't get involved in community and economic development. Anybody can do this. Stop saying there's no opportunity in Appalachia. I mean, that can go so far. If you can begin to share the positive message that there is a future here, if you can start to tell your children there are opportunities here. There may not be as many as there are in other areas, but there are opportunities here. Give them the chance, share with them, educate them on what's happening and what's going to change in the next 5 years and what's going to be in the next 10 years. And if there's not opportunity, create it. Create opportunity. That's what being an entrepreneur is all about. So anybody can do that. Go home, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your kids today, I think there's a future in Appalachia and we got to do something about it. So share that message. Let's talk real quick about some just real practical things that I wrote this several years ago. I used to work, I've done some small business consulting. I own a small business, a guitar store. I worked for the small business development centers. I've worked for other groups that worked for the chamber, working with small business owners and managers all across the region. And through all that, I put down 3 things that I've figured out that cause new businesses to fail, and these are small businesses. So I'm going to kind of walk through these and just share some of these thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts and questions you might have, and your experience in this. So I've met a lot of people who are good at what they do. They're good at a service or a product. They may be great at lawn care. They may be great at construction or plumbing, or they may be a great chef. but when it comes to running the business side of things, they struggle. So here are 3 quick tips I would give to anybody who's thinking about starting a business that you have to do, and there are partners that can help do that. One is failure to put pen to paper. In other words, you don't plan. You don't. I say this: business plan and crunching numbers. And what do I mean by crunching numbers? Well, if you're going to start a business, the best way to do this is to work backward. You need to think about what kind of income do I need to have to be able to survive. So you start with that number. You got to have the numbers of how much your startup costs are going to be. You know, if I'm going to start a restaurant, how much is my oven going to cost? How much is it going to cost to get all my permits? How much is it going to cost to get fixtures, to remodel a space, if I'm going to buy a building or rent a building? So your startup costs, legal fees, all these startup costs, you need to have those written down. Figure out how much it's going to be. If you're going to try to borrow money, you need to know what the terms are going to be, how much money you need to borrow, and any collateral that you could put up for that. And there's 2 different types of expenses. There are fixed expenses. These are that occur every month, so you need to know how much your utilities are going to be, your rent's going to be, insurance, things that stay the same every single month. But then you also need to know what your variable expenses are going to be. So if you're, again, using a restaurant as an example, you need to know, all right, well, this is what's your food cost going to be. If you have $500 in sales, what's your food cost with that? If you have $1,500 in sales, what's your food cost in that? What's your margin? How much does the food cost compared to what I'm selling it for? The worst thing you can do in a restaurant environment is to not know those numbers, and so you got to know those numbers. You got to know what you're going to sell the product for, what it's worth, and once you start crunching these numbers, I've walked through this process with a lot of people that thought they had a great idea, and you just get to the end of the number and you realize I can never make money doing this. So at that point, you've got to change your plan, change your price, change your product, change something to make it work. Because at the end of this process, you will know. Here's how much money I have to make to survive and take care of my family. And in order to do that, based on all the fixed expenses, upfront costs, variable expenses, I've got to sell 40,000 cheeseburgers a month, or whatever that number is. You can begin to get to that type of number, and you should know that number. You should know how many sales I have to have a month to break even, to make money. So crunching numbers. You may not be a numbers person. There are a lot of partners out there that can help with that. The Kentucky Innovation Network offices, the Small Business Development Centers, they serve every community. Sometimes you may not be able to, they may not be out there in the public, and you might have trouble finding them, but call our office. We can help you point you in the right direction to help with that. Just got Michelle Spriggs on here, who's with the Small Business Development Center from Maury State University, and they do a lot of this work. They sit down and can walk you through that planning and crunch those numbers for you. The second thing is mistaken assumptions. You assume people are going to like your product. You may assume that the place you're going to rent has a lot of traffic and has a lot of walk-by traffic, or you assume that if you make great stuff, people are just going to find out about it. The best thing to do to challenge this is read as much about your industry, your business as you can. Talk to other business owners that are in your business, your area of business. Get as much information ahead of time so that you can make sure your assumptions are accurate. Because this is one place, this is one issue you can run into. There's no perfect way to do this, but you can take steps to reduce the risk. So the third thing is to failure to identify leading indicators. How do I know each day or each week, am I having progress? Am I making progress? When I first started working in a small business, our indicator of success was money in the bank, was the checking account. Unfortunately, in business and the way it works, it gets so complicated that you can actually be making money on paper and have no money. It's called cash flow. So you may be paying debts off, or you may be doing things that aren't necessarily affecting your income statement, but they're affecting cash. So cash in the bank is not necessarily the best indicator of success, and by the time you figure that out at the end of the month, it's too late to make any changes. So you've got to identify the leading indicators. How many customers are coming in a day? How many people? How many returning customers do you have? Or are people just coming in and then you never see them again? So you got to identify those 2 or 3 things in your business that tell you each day, okay, it was a good day. This is showing that tomorrow's going to be better. That we're headed in the right direction, which will then affect cash flow. So those are 3 thoughts I would share around starting a small business. So crunch some numbers. Take the time to sit down and think through your business plan. I've been in positions where you got an idea and when I say a business plan, I don't necessarily mean it has to be written out. Some of the best business plans I've ever heard are just in people's heads. I mean, you've thought through what you're going to sell your product for, your service. You know how much it's going to cost you. You know these numbers. You know how you're going to market it. You know who you're going to communicate to. You know who your audience is, and you've thought through it. You may not have it in paper, but you've thought through it and you know it. It helps me to write it down, because once you write it down, you start thinking differently. When it's coming out of your hand or you're typing it, you start to see maybe some holes that were in it that you hadn't thought through, and you can begin to fix that. So write down the plan, write down the numbers, and crunch them, and do your break-even point. With all of your expected expenses, what do I need to do to make $1, or whatever dollar amount you need to make. Check your assumptions. What are you assuming that may not be true? You assume a lot of things when it's your own business, that people are going to love it or that's great. But ask people, test it, do something part-time or on the weekend, and just see what happens, and then go from there. And then failure to identify leading indicators, just waiting to see if you've made money to tell you whether you're successful or not. Pick something else to help you drive the discussion and drive your decision making day to day. Hey, Kevin Smith, Young Professionals of East Kentucky, great to have you on. Sean Thatcher made a comment just a minute ago. I'm going to read that real quick and respond to it maybe. Any other questions about starting a business in Eastern Kentucky, or sharing your experience or thoughts on what I just talked about? Would love to hear them, and we can have a few minutes of discussion here before we wrap up. But let's see what Sean had to say. So Sean, you got to go read his story. I'll get Josh kind of behind the camera maybe to add a link in here and a comment that you can go read Sean's story. The biggest problems we ran into was the logistics of it. There's no one person or local county city department that you can go see to find out what you need to open a business. We got to run around and cost us so much time. We just went for broke and hoped for the best. Hey, that last line, that's what this is about. This is what I said at the beginning. Entrepreneurs refuse to accept the risk of doing nothing. So Sean has gone for it. We hope the message we've been sharing, we hope people come by. I've heard something about brisket chili. I got to get there and check it out. And maybe Sean will come there. and do that on site, and we'll do a show on site. Maybe we can talk about it, and I can try out the chili on camera and make everybody's mouth water. Richard Rohr, who's the small business person in Johnson County? So Michelle Spriggs is on here. She is with the Small Business Development Center out of Morehead State. I think their office is in Pikeville now, but they service Johnson County. I don't know if they still have a full-time person there in an office. I know they've reduced their staff sizes, but I'm sure she would be happy to come down there and meet with you. Yeah. So Michelle Spriggs, Small Business Development Center from MSU, would be a great point person there. Another person also is Justin Prater, who works for the Innovation Network office at the University of Pikeville. Either one of those two can help and support on small business. Yeah, so there's Michelle. She's commenting. Got anybody else? Got any questions? Again, it's National Entrepreneurship Week. We wanted to talk about that and small business ownership and small business development. I'm going to speak until we get some more questions. I'm going to speak to our strategy around small business development in Eastern Kentucky. One, we want people thinking about how to leverage the digital economy. If you're thinking about starting a small business, we need downtown restaurants. We need quality of life things. We need local stores. But we are in such in many of our communities in such a depressed economy that those restaurants are typically driven by people. People have to have money in the community to go shop or eat in those restaurants. So one of the things that we have to do, if you own one of those restaurants, we need to try to turn your community into a tourism destination. So you got people coming from outside of the community. Beattyville and Jackson are pretty well positioned around Red River Gorge. Those are great opportunities to do some of these types of businesses. And we've seen a lot of small businesses grow there. But we want people thinking from the digital economy perspective. I'm going to, let's see, I got the blueprint up here. I'll talk about our specific objectives as it relates to small business in Appalachia. So the first objective is to help people with e-commerce and export. And Ian Moores has helped big time in that, and a lot of our other partners help with that. But we want you thinking, what can I, now that I'm connected to the internet, you know, I remember, I checked the other day, I was raised in Salyersville, Magoffin County, and I remember dial-up internet. Y'all remember dial-up internet? We paid for it by the hour, I think. And if somebody got on the phone and they could hit a bunch of buttons and disconnect you, got the internet, and it was 1998. I set up my first eBay account, and I started selling stuff on eBay when I was 15, I guess, and from the middle of Appalachia. So, and I met this lady from Letcher County, runs a furniture. They refinish antique furniture. And they used to just have a little shop in Letcher County. And they started a Facebook page. And now they ship and sell and move things all over Eastern Kentucky. They've got a whole new customer base, marketing tool using social media. I've mentioned the guy who's got the YouTube channel with 200,000 subscribers in Eastern Kentucky. There is an archery store. I believe it's in Johnson County. I think they're still active. They have an online presence. Doing custom archery, shipping archery bows all over the country. How do we think like that? And how do you think like that? And how do we build skill sets that give people the tools to be able to do that? And continue to grow entrepreneurs that think like that. Because guess what? The next generation is thinking like that. They don't know any other world other than being connected in that way. So if they want to start a tech business, if they want to create an app, they can do it right here, and they can put it in the iTunes store from right here and create a tremendous company. The opportunity is here to do that. So the second objective is, so one is, how do we get small business thinking about e-commerce and export when it relates to the digital economy? The second one is promoting successful entrepreneurs in the region, telling their stories, and specifically supporting education in K through 16 in entrepreneurship. I had no idea what an entrepreneur was when I graduated high school. Couldn't spell it. I might be able to spell it now, maybe not. If it's in front of me, I can do it. Well, one thing, if you didn't notice, I got a little Christmas coffee mug today. All the other ones were dirty. So, just some extra there for you. 'Tis the season for entrepreneurship. That's what that means, not Christmas. So, entrepreneurship education. How do we just get students thinking about owning their own business? We talk about career readiness. We talk about college readiness. What if we had business readiness, or and how do we infuse business education in with the technical trades? Because I tell you what, a plumber running his own operation can make six figures. But you got to know more than just plumbing. You got to know how to handle your taxes. You got to know how to manage and market yourself, and the legal side of it. So how do we educate that? And we need schools to step up and say, I'm going to make entrepreneurship a component of education in my curriculum. And we need them also doing business plan competitions. We've seen a lot of that. We need people to help us on that. We can't do it, but we need people to help up, step up and do that. We want a strong network of business owners, so y'all know each other. The best person you can learn from is someone else who's in business, who's been through what you're going through, and share those stories. And so the other thing is, exactly to Sean's point earlier, that we've got all these resources and nobody knows about them. Well, I won't say nobody, but most of the time, when you're running a small business, you're so thankful that you got to be there on time today and get the door open. And then when the day's over, you just are like, oh, I survived. And you go home. Hopefully you get to go home. So it's hard to take time out of working in your business and running it to work on your business and go to a meeting and go meet with somebody and talk about what you should do. Because you gotta be there. You gotta be running it. You gotta be making it happen. So how do we more efficiently communicate to business owners what the services are, and how do we more efficiently deliver those services to them so that they don't have to leave their site to get the information? And obviously, in what we're doing here today, we think technology is a great way to do that. And we think we've got to figure out how to use it in a more efficient way to deliver that and communicate that. Let's see. So the last objectives, we want more business plan competitions. And Innovation Network offices have led on these, and they've done several great ones. We want an opportunity for you to pitch your idea and win some money doing it. It's not as much about, well, now these people have the money to start the business. It's about getting people thinking like that and understanding and studying and planning and crunching numbers and the experience they get going through the process. Sometimes it can be a little academic, and in the real world, just the way Sean said it, they went for broke. I mean, you put it all on the line and you go for it. So we need that attitude from more people, and we need the next generation thinking they can do that here. They need to be told they can do that here, and we need your help in doing that. I think I've talked enough. Any questions before we get ready to wrap this up? Or thoughts? I'll give a few quick just reminders about some upcoming things. The Opportunity Zone submissions, make sure your community is aware of that and planning on doing it. And Also, the consortium in Wattsburg, if you're in that neck of the woods, the Kentucky River area, would encourage you to come out and just see what's happening there. It's pretty incredible the way people are stepping up to work together. Had a great meeting in Hyden last week, putting a local group together to talk about the blueprint and the checklist in their community. So we sat around the table with about 15 community leaders and said, what are we doing in Hyden and Leslie County about broadband? And they put together a broadband authority, and they talked through their plan and what they're doing with regards to broadband. And then we talked about 21st century skills. They've got a community college campus there. They've got a teleworks hub now. So we talked about that. We talked about local foods. We talked about healthy communities. And so I'm going back next month with the same group to begin checking boxes and saying what's the future here. And if your community is interested in being a part of something like that, we would love to come out and assist in facilitating that and getting that together, and maybe doing monthly meetings. Obviously, we don't have enough people and resources to do that in every community. But if you're interested in doing it, they reached out to us, said, "Come do this. We'll invite the people. Let's talk." And we did that, and it was very successful. We want to do more of it. So we would love to participate in that, and we know that's where it has to happen, on the local level. The governor, state government, federal government cannot do it all themselves. They cannot fix a community from 100 or 500 miles away. We know the future of our communities rests in the hands of the people in these communities. So we need you. Your neighbors need you. We've got to step up, take some ownership, not just complain, which is really easy to do, but get to work. And I see people doing it all over, and that's why we believe there's a future in Appalachia. So next week we're going to have, I think we got our first guest coming on next week. Our plan is to have the mayor of Prestonsburg, Les Stapleton. The city of Prestonsburg is a blueprint partner. Just like an organization or an individual can sign up, a local government can sign up and say, we agree with the blueprint goals. We want to implement those in our community. We want to be a partner in this. And Les has done some great work. We're going to talk about his approach to leadership, some things he's done as mayor of Prestonsburg that's got the community more engaged, some of the successes he's seen, some challenges he's faced, and we're going to share his story and what's happening in Prestonsburg, and give you a chance to ask him some questions, ask us some questions, and have a discussion about community leadership, because this is what this. I say communities will rise and fall on leadership, nothing else. Sincere leadership that, when people sign up as a partner, SOAR, they agree to our core values. Our core values are things like faith and grit and teamwork and service and compassion and leadership. These are things this is not about us, it's not about me. It's about the team. It's about working together and pushing forward. So we want to continue that message, and we want to share people who agree with that and believe in it. And we want you to be a partner. If you're not, we'd encourage you to go to our website. I'll get Josh to share it. The link to our partnership page where you can see. That just gets you on the email list. We're going to have our big summit again this year where we bring all our partners together. Got that tentatively scheduled for August 16th and 17th. Mark it down. Save that date. And we'd encourage you to come out and be a part of that. And that's the day. We can do a lot of this electronically through the year, but that's the 1 to 2 days a year we all get together. It's part pep rally. It's part visioning. It's part promotion and proof that there is a future in Appalachia. It's sharing the success stories and it's a networking event where you connect with people that can help you do what you're trying to do. And that's the vision of it, and that's what happens. Over 1,000 people came last year. We believe we'll have the same amount or more this year, and so we'd encourage you to get out for that. Put it on your calendar. Any other questions? I'm going to wrap this thing up, I believe. I appreciate everybody jumping on, sharing it, getting into some conversation. But any last questions or thoughts? All right, we're wrapping up. Feel free to share this even after it's over, and we're going to start cataloging these on our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to access it from our website to catch previous episodes, and maybe even a podcast on iTunes. But we thank you, we appreciate you, and feel free to reach out to our office, email us with any questions between now and the next one. Info@soar, SOAR-KY.org. You can send us questions or topics you'd like us to discuss, or you can message us on Facebook. You can call our office. Just get us. You can find us, I promise. Thanks, and again, we believe there's a future in Appalachia.